Every so often I tend to get a real treat, and this is one of them. Tamiya's new de Havilland Mosquito Mark 6. This isn't due for sale in the UK for another couple of months, but I've been given a complete set of plastic parts. This is a production part, so the plastic is actually what you're going to be getting when you buy the kit. I am missing a few minor bits and pieces like the decal sheet, and the instruction manual, as can be seen here, is in prototype form. So I'm going to wade through a couple of pages from the instruction book. This is large and heavy. I was actually going to send this out to one of my colleagues to have a look at by post, and it actually would cost nearly £4 to post it. It was that heavy. So we decided we wouldn't do that, and I just scanned the pages for him. But the instruction book is really comprehensive. It's marked with Tamiya paint codes, as it is always. Here we're looking at the mostly the instrument panel and the cockpit. Tamiya are using their reverse dials. They have had that before in the Zero, so on the decal sheet it just looks like black squares, but the decal is the wrong way round, so the images are on the other side. So you apply it to the back of the clear parts, and then you have the dials showing through. One thing that has changed is that all of these instrument panel fascias here are in steel. I'm not a great fan of the steel because it is quite hard to work with. Unlike brass, it's quite hard to cut. It doesn't bend very easily, can't be annealed. That is a bit of a problem for the seat belts, but we'll look again at those a little bit later. Now the engines are just superb. It would be a shame to hide these away. There's over 70 pieces to make up the engine bays, and nearly everything except fuel lines is there. Really looks very simple, but very... Oh, I can't even say the word. It's just staggering to look at. It's just so detailed. It just leaps out at you. Like the Spitfire and the Mustang before it, we have metal magnets which are hidden away in the engine compartment, and they then attach to metal blanks which are fitted to the inside of the nacelles. So you can actually remove the nacelles if you so wish, if you like that feature. I'm sure many modelers will do one buttoned up and one opened. The choice is really up to you. I mean, these are just a beautiful, beautiful work of art. I know I rave, but these really are outstanding. Now we come to one of the unique features of this kit, the way you assemble the wheels. The wheels are multi-part, more correctly should I say the tyres are multi-part. Now this is to do away with seam lines. Now looking at the plastic, I do have a little bit of reservation about this, but we'll look at that when we look at the plastic parts. Undercarriage legs are all plastic, but look pretty substantial. I'm sure metal ones will not be far away. More in the back of the cockpit this time. You have alternative radio sets, so an aircraft kitted with a G receiver, or the more standard twin radio. Dials are supplied as part of the decal sheet apparently. I haven't got the decal sheet, but they are marked as being there, which is a real nice touch. Even things like the dinghy hatch on the rear spine is separate, so can be shown open if you really want to open up the whole model. Now all the gun bays are open, as are the bomb bays, and you do get, again, not surprising, large amount of detail. Slide moulding has been used, and the barrels are slightly hollowed out. Again, I'm sure Master Models will be producing a complete set of barrels for this kit in the not too distant future. But what you've got out of the box is perfectly fine for most modelers, though I will say that having seen their 124 set, certainly the Oerlikons may definitely need to be upgraded once that set's released. Full cockpit detail. Again, I'll have a look at the plastic parts a little bit later, but there are some things that are faithfully reproduced which might be a little bit confusing to most, but I will show you these when I get to the plastic. Here we have the 420mm cannons and their attachment points. I called them Oerlikons earlier, they're actually Hispanos. I do apologise for that. Again, these are slide moulded, look quite nice out of the box. Bombay is very well detailed. Nice to see that even the bomb gets its full assortment of stencils from the decal sheet, which, as I say, is missing from our example. I'm really impressed by this kit. I just think there's going to be so many different ways you can show it off. We have a look at the Bombay doors. Again, even the insides of those are fully detailed. Really sweet. Here we have the attachment of the cowling sides. So they use the metal blanks which fixed into the cowling detail, and then there's a magnet inside the engine which will actually suck them onto the model. This has been used before. It can work quite well. I personally am not really a fan of this gimmicky feature, but I know there are modelers out there who do like it. So you have got the choice: glue them in place, remove them, or use the magnets. Here we have the cockpits. This is the glazing. The mask will be supplied with the kit. Again, missing from our example, but they will come with it. Nice to see you get the full internal framework actually supplied in the plastic. I can't remember if the FX124 scale does that. I don't think it does. So that is a real nice touch from Tamiya. 3 pilot figures are supplied. The normal flying pilot and navigator looking at his map board. Again, the map is supplied on the decal sheet. And one with the pilot about to stand and climb into the aircraft. These aren't as good as resin by a long way. They're quite adequate, but I would only say adequate. They're not state-of-the-art castings by any means. And if I was going to use figures, I would certainly be looking at the resin aftermarket to supply them. Now a quick run through on what we get decal-wise. Stencils, very complete stencils. I made it nearly 100 stencils to go on the airframe. I don't remember Mosquito having that many, but apparently it does. First marking option from 305 Polish Squadron out of Lasham, with the checkerboard Polish motif on the nose. Overall silver doped finished one from the Royal Australian Air Force, number 1 Squadron in Borneo. Again, that's quite an attractive one because of the blue and white markings. And the third option, Royal New Zealand Air Force 487 Squadron out of Hunsdon. I'm a bit surprised we didn't get a Black Knight fighter in this boxing. I think it will come. The moulds are certainly set up for multi-part. So you get 3 attractive options already. Extra Decal have already announced a follow-on decal sheet, as has Aviology from Canada. So there will be alternative markings available for this by the time the kit is released. Okay, here we're going to have a look at the plastic parts. I'm going to start with those wheels. So basically what we have here is the hubs. You have both the late and early style hubs, though only one is marked for use on this boxing. Then you have the tyre, 2 pieces. And then around the edges of the tyre you have the individual tread blocks. Now, the only thing I'll say is these look very slab-sided. Now, I haven't seen this tyre built up. I'm only looking at it on the plastic parts, so it's only my initial impression. But they do look very straight-edged sides. I also think the tread pattern is probably a little pronounced. Could do with sanding back a bit to show a bit of wear. I'm not convinced on these. I certainly know there's at least one resin aftermarket manufacturer who is planning having a set of replacement resin wheels available for when this kit is released. I say I'll hold my verdict until I see it with the tyres made up. Next we have the engine nacelles. This is the standard kit boxing. They're very thin. There is mounting pieces for those magnets, which I've already spoken about. In the UK, we will actually get a different set of parts included in our kit, which is these clear ones. Now, they're actually semi-opaque rather than super clear. And another issue with them is how you're actually going to attach them to the model, because obviously you can't use the magnet system, which would show through. So these would have to be permanently glued in place. These are only going to be available on the UK boxing. Again, I am holding fire on them. I wish they'd been a bit clearer. They really won't show off the detail internally that well. But again, nice try, Tamiya. So here we have the steel parts that come with the kit. Again, it's very well carried out. I do have reservations about steel, which is a lot harder to work with than metal, in my opinion. It doesn't fold as easily or cut as easily. There are a few little folds on there, but I mean, it really is a personal preference. I'm sure brass will be along shortly. Real nice touches are the cooling rack for some of the radio equipment. And here we have, I'll see if we can move this out of the way and catch it into the light. These are the instrument panel fascias that I was trying to talk about. So these are the instrument panel fascias in metal rather than in plastic on previous kits. So you do get a lot of detail parts on this steel fret. So, I'm quite nice. It's just it's a bit hard to cut with and not that easy to fold. Now at this point I would normally be looking at the things like the fuselage halves and going on about the nice restrained panel detail. The Mosquito was made of wood and is a relatively smooth airframe, so we do have detail in areas that need it, and they are a beautiful mix of restrained engraving and raised detail. It really does represent the construction of the Mosquito quite beautifully. The multi-part nature of the moulds obviously point to future variants. Here we have some detail. Most of this is obviously specific to the Mark VI fighter bomber. We have the framework for the gun camera in the nose. Now, again, one thing I'm just going to point out, only because I've sat in a Mosquito and I knew this, on the cockpit sides, you'll find these little dots. They're not an imperfection. They are actually present on the real aircraft. I haven't got the foggiest what they are. They're like some kind of reinforcement. Now, if you look elsewhere on the SAMI portal, you'll actually find some photographs, a video that I made at the Mosquito Aircraft Museum where I got to sit in the Mosquito, and I can show these quite clearly. Certainly if you're building this kit, it's worth having a quick look at. So there we go, really nice. Yeah, I'm quite impressed with this. Now here we go with the wings. This is where we see that mix of restrained engraving and raised detail. Now I'm not sure how well the camera will pick this up. You can actually just see it look almost like marks, but that is raised. Rivet detail on the leading edge. Again, I'm going to try and catch it in the light to show it. So it does actually really nicely represent what a Mosquito wing looks like. Again, a really impressive use of moulding. It's just what we've come to expect from Tamiya. Here we have the engine and the cannon sprues. Again, nice use of slide mould technology for the cannons and the machine guns, which means that we do actually have hollowed out barrels and exhaust pipes. Bit hard to see, but they are actually slightly dimpled in. They look really effective with a wash over them. Yeah, again, very nicely detailed. Can't see any major issues with this sprue. Control surfaces are all moulded separately, as you would expect, and that does mean you can pose them to add a little bit of interest to your model rather than have everything in the neutral position. That's a feature I actually do quite like. Luckily, we seem to have done away in the most part with metal hinging and working features, so these are actually poseable rather than actually waggle them around time. It's nice to see that Tamiya have given you the option of either having the slim blade or paddle bladed propellers out of the box. I say, this kit is obviously going to run and run and run. How long it will be before we see future variants, I'm not exactly sure. I would hazard years, but certainly I think there's room for the aftermarket to look at producing further versions using this kit as a base, especially considering some of the issues that HK models have with their kit. Here we see the substantial wing spar. Really, everything should be firmed up on this model. You know Tamiya kits. I mean, they just drop together. I think this is going to be another one in that class. Beautifully engineered. No real moulding marks anywhere that is going to be visible on the completed model. Well, here we have the last sprue. This is the multi-part pilots and some of the tail control surfaces. I say, you can see what I mean about these pilots. They're multi-part, a bit soft in detail. Faces are okay, but nothing outstanding. I say, certainly I'd be replacing them if it was me, but at least you have got them inside the kit. Now let's have a quick look at the clear components. Now, I don't really like videoing the clear parts. They're quite hard to pick up on the camera, but these are super clear. Really, really nice. Of note is that the right-hand side of the canopy is cut away. That's so you have the choice of fitting either these bulged or flat-sided side pans. One oddity is these parts down here. These are supposed to represent the grids that fit in front of one of the intakes on the lower engine. Not quite sure why we didn't get those on the etch sheet, which would have looked far nicer. In fact, I think we did. I'm pretty sure that this part here is this part here on the metal, though it doesn't say it is. I'm pretty sure that is it, and that's for the standard European intake rather than the larger tropical variant. I'm sure that the brass manufacturers will be all over this with replacement grids at some point, though. So that's it. My first look at the de Havilland Mosquito by Tamiya. There are a few little queries that I've thrown up. I say, until I put the kit together, I really can't tell for sure how much of a problem that's going to be. But there are some things that I think can be replaced. But by and large, this is a wonderful, wonderful piece of plastic moulding. It's certainly worth its asking price, which is not going to be one of the cheapest kits you'll ever buy. Certainly, you could be working on this for months, maybe even a year, if you want to do the kit real justice. There's not a lot of room for resin upgrades as far as detail goes. What you get in the kit in most parts is more than acceptable. I do have a query on the wheels. I would like metal gun barrels. That would probably be it for me. Decal sheets, as said, already on the way, and I can certainly see a lot of potential for later mark variants, as in the C Mosquito, which were done by one of the manufacturers for the FX kit. I can easily see them doing the same again for this one. I've already placed one on order. This particular model is actually going straight out to one of our review team to build, and we'll hope to have a full build in the September issue of Scale Aviation Modeler International. I must mention that we do have 2 data files on the Mosquito, which will be invaluable in building this book, and they are available to order from our website. Our thanks to the hobby company, the UK importers, who put a lot of work into getting me this test shot ahead of schedule. I think we were one of the first people to get one in the country. I really, really have appreciated that, and it's enabled me to do this video, a preview in the magazine this month, and as I say, hopefully the full build in September's issue of Scale Aviation Modeler International. I hope you enjoyed my look at de Havilland Mosquito Mark 6 by Tamiya.